Good morning. I'm going to invite us to greet each other, to welcoming each other, making sure that everyone is welcomed and greeted, but today, to add one element if you're open to it, which is to name your name, the name you're glad you have, and maybe another name that you've been glad that you've had in your life. Maybe it's a nickname, not one that you didn't like, but there is a name that's been used for you that you like. I invite you to share that as well. So I invite you to share your name and/or some other names that you appreciate about yourself and find out about others. With that, I invite us to greet each other. Online too.
Thank you for greeting each other well. Good morning. I am Lindsay Dunckel, or Linz, or Dunks, a member of this congregation, and I am, or Bunny, thank you, George, yes. It's only for a select few. I am serving as worship associate this morning alongside the Reverend Kevin Tarsa. Our aim this morning, no. That sounds like it involves weapons. Yeah. Our target, that's really no better. Our goal this morning, football. Yeah, I don't like that either. That sounds like competitive sports. Our aspiration. It rhymes with perspiration. Our aspiration as we begin a month focused on inclusion is to examine, surprise, surprise, the power of words. In fact, we can kill two birds with one stone. Oh, that's awful. We can feed two birds with one hand. Or one scone, yeah, because we are also in the midst of the season of nonviolence. It's the period between the deaths of Gandhi on January 30th and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th. So this morning we take the bull by the horns. No, that sounds cruel. We take the rose by the thorns and take a hard look. That doesn't sound like any fun. We dive into, much better, how language plays into, also fun, how we think, how we relate to one another, and how we include or exclude one another, inviting us to open up or to shut down. Now, this part doesn't have anything to do with words, but everything to do with inclusion. If you are seated on an aisle and you have an empty seat next to you, won't you please consider moving over, if you're able, to create an easily inclusive spot for somebody who might be just arriving. So fill in those middle seats if you can. Welcome to those in the room and those on Zoom, by all the names you choose to be known, to the Unitarian Universalist community of the mountains. May we, all of us, use our words and actions to create here the haven and/or the inspiration each of us is seeking. May we draw the circle wide. May we find the openings we need. It is good to be together. And I invite Lynn Whitson up this morning to read the land acknowledgement.
We are including land acknowledgement today. On this first Sunday in the monthly theme of inclusion. Especially, we remind ourselves to remember that the history of this area continues to live in people's lives and bodies, including our own. With the symbol of these black oak acorns, we remind ourselves that the Nisenan people are still here among us today, resilient beyond genocide and generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. Let us remember with care and commitment, with words and action, that we gather today on Nisenan land.
For those who are newer, Lynn and Bev have been beloved members for a lot of years, and it's so great to see you in person today. So in this tradition, we light what we call a flaming chalice. It's a symbol that grew from the grounds up. This is from a Unitarian service committee that was helping people escape Nazi persecution in Europe, and they needed a logo, quite honestly, for their paperwork, where they're trying to get people across borders with official-looking papers. And a Dutch artist has a whole story, designed this logo of a chalice. He wasn't very religious, but he thought that's a kind of universal religious symbol, a cup, and fire, another universal religious symbol. So we have this cup with a flame, and it did not come with pre-ordered meanings, right, or symbolism. So when we light it, we are often naming in a given service or a meeting or a gathering what we're lighting it for today. And often we use kind of the message or theme of our service to focus it. Today we're going to turn it to you, both the folks on Zoom and in the room, to name some of the reasons to light this chalice today. And so it might start with something very personal, but I also invite you to think of why would we as a community light our chalice? What might that light represent? What might we want it to represent for us today? And as we name these, and I'll repeat them so we can hear them, and Eileen will share some on Zoom afterwards, we're going to do what the young people do, which is we'll light it. We'll get ready to light. So why might we light our chalice today? What would be a good reason for us to light our chalice? Unity. Hope. Remembrance, inclusion, justice, community, kindness, anti-Nazism. You have one? Oh. Love. Oh, excellent reason. Connection. Generosity, warmth, wisdom. Eileen, would you share some from online? And Paul, would you spotlight Eileen? We'll get ready with our lighters.
Hope, love, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Sweetness.
Sweetness.
Refuge.
Refuge.
Compassion.
Compassion.
Hope.
Hope.
A beacon of sanity.
A beacon of sanity. Oh.
Faith and community.
Faith and community.
Welcoming.
Welcoming.
Redemption.
Redemption. For all these and everything else that's in your heart and mind, ready with our final light? We light our chalice. What beautiful reasons. What beautiful symbols to attach to this light in this community. Thank you. I invite our choir to offer a response to that. This was a song that was sung yesterday at Janet Bullock's Celebration of Life. Independent of this service, the two ended up on the same weekend. So I invite us to hear these words both for this moment and with our many loved ones who have gone in mind and heart.
Holy moment.
send our light with our youngest members on their way to Kids Connection with this little light of mine. Thanks to the choir and Toby, thank you. Years ago, I helped 2 people deliver their keynote workshops at a conference of several hundred Unitarian Universalists. Planning team members had inadvertently booked 2 different keynote speakers, and they decided to honor both contracts and invitations. One of those presenters asked me not only to support their portion of the keynote, but also throughout to help bridge the differences in these 2 keynoters' messages and styles. They asked me to do this through the use of music and movement, through embodied, emotionally engaging, meaningful, and connective experiences. So we opened the conference with a half hour of singing. Songs that most participants would either know or could pick up easily. And with the skill and talent of several musical colleagues, our half hour of dynamic and energized singing culminated with a raise the roof version of This Little Light of Mine. It was powerful medicine. It was exactly what we had hoped for. We were so pleased. So as the ensuing hoopla kind of gradually settled, the other keynoter, not the one who had invited me, walked to the microphone to open their presentation and said to the crowd, "For a moment there, I thought I was in a Baptist church." Everyone laughed, and the speaker went on to introduce their main themes for the conference. Well, almost everyone laughed. I realized at some point, for reasons I didn't understand, that the other keynoter, the one who had invited me, was there on the stage quietly steaming. And later, I found out why. This person who had invited me had spent decades, and in fact was focusing their presentations at this conference on helping Unitarian Universalists move out of a solely intellectual, disembodied, individualistic, sit still and quiet, emotion-thin, word and idea-focused culture to be more engaged emotionally, spiritually, physically, relationally, as well as intellectually. My colleague explained to me that when the other speaker got up and said, in the midst of that power-infused moment, "For a moment there, I thought I was in a Baptist church," the implicit message they had inadvertently delivered to everyone there was, Unitarian Universalists don't do this. Baptists do, but not UUs. Or, for a moment there, I thought I was in a Baptist church because this wouldn't happen in a UU community. That unspoken message tapped into and reinforced an entire set of existing assumptions and expectations and habits about ourselves as UUs. Assumptions and expectations that my colleague was working for decades so hard to change. Thus the steaming, right? As we enter this month exploring inclusion together, what inclusion means and what supports or hampers inclusion, we want to begin by inviting our attention to the language we use, even to talk about inclusion. Having been born on the Protestant branch of religiosity, we are, after all, a tradition that tends to focus on words. Today, we begin with the understanding that the words we use set up a frame, a mental structure that determines what we see and how we perceive. For a moment, I thought I was in a Baptist church. Sets up a frame, meaning I wouldn't expect this of Unitarian Universalists, because that's not what Unitarian Universalists do. That wasn't the intended message, but the frame delivers that message. And that comes through whether we recognize it or not. Now, I chose this very subtle framing story as an opening example, not because it's the one that's going to make or break existence, right? But to point out that so many of the frames we put in place through the words we use are subtle and outside of our conscious awareness. Instance by instance, not a huge deal, one at a time, but in being repeated over and over again, they start to shape our perceptions and therefore our behaviors without our even realizing it. Here's a more familiar and insidious framing that I would think is more common, but except it's not as common as I would hope. Here at the beginning of Black History Month, let me name that to refer to anyone as a slave. Harriet Tubman was a slave, for example, or Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, is to add this frame that implies that slaveness is an inherent quality in a person, right? To say that someone is a slave says, oh, slaveness is a part of who they are. And that sets up a whole set of expectations about where that person belongs or not, and how they should be treated. A framing that would more accurately identify the reality is to refer to people who were or are enslaved. Enslaved, that frame automatically has the brain, even unconsciously saying, oh, somewhere there's an enslaver. Right? It changes our focus of attention, even unconsciously. All by itself, just the word enslaved puts up a frame that places the onus where it belongs, on those doing the enslaving. This is more than mere semantics or political correctness. The particular words we use influence what our brain does with what and who the words are referring to. And 98% of what's going on in our brains around this is unconscious. This is hard for liberal intellectual people. No, I'm on top of this. I've got it. I see it. 98% is unconscious. It's not about what we're aware we're thinking. It's about what a given frame evokes without our realizing it. That's why frames matter. Here's another relevant framing. Illegal aliens. Illegal, as it's being used in this way, again implies that that's a quality of a human being, that they're inherently illegal, as if that's even possible. Again, this is not about conscious thought. This is about the unconscious associations with the word and the concept of illegal that are activated when we use that word. And then there's the word alien. Oh my goodness. What does alien imply? Outsider, excluded, weird, different, monster, not wanted, total otherness, right? Doesn't belong here, has nothing in common with me, can't be understood, assumed dangerous, outside my circle of care, alien. The term illegal alien doubles down to dehumanize people and to maximize their exclusion. Just the language. No, you don't have to add any ideas. The moment you use those words, it does that. The Associated Press stopped using the term in 2013. The Library of Congress stopped using the term in 2016. The Trump administration insists on it. And illegal alien is the term used throughout the January 20 executive orders regarding immigration. And not by accident. That is intentional framing. In fact, they were banning the use of words like immigrant, right, in their public statements. Alternatives could be undocumented immigrants, or unauthorized, or non-citizen, or without citizenship status, or unlawfully present. All those frames frame things quite differently than illegal alien. In our Starting Point series for new persons, we had a great initial conversation recently about the use of the word church when referring to this community. It's not just a word, is it? It sets up a frame, right, that includes everything we associate with churchness, good and bad. We talked about how in some conversations, it just makes it a lot easier and faster to say church to help certain people know the general category we're talking about, even if our sense of church is very different from theirs, right? It's a shorthand. Why is it a shorthand? Because it's a frame. It's already in place. You don't have to explain it. It's already in place. For people raised in the Jewish tradition, church sets up additional layers of cautionariness, right? I noted that when I'm here in-house, talking to other members and friends about UUCM, often it's easier just to use the word church as a shorthand, lowercase c, in part because we have already, if you've been here a while, we've already reframed the word, many of us, right? And we can, with each other, know that we're actually using a different frame. Out in the world, a little different story. George Lakoff, the cognitive linguist who for decades has been trying to convince progressive people of the power of frames, not just rational logic, not just arguments, on the surface, but the frames. He points out that if you have to use several paragraphs to explain what you mean by a word or a phrase, there's not a strong enough frame, right? It doesn't work. It's the frames that activate. Build into and reinforce frames, he says, that tap into progressive values. Frames that activate empathy. Frames that activate compassion, nurturance, cooperation, helping, pursuit of the common good. We recently had some meaningful conversations en route to the new name tags out here regarding what the term visitor implies versus the term guest. Now, one of the things I've discovered is that this is a little bit like mission and vision, where sometimes people have opposite senses of each word. But in general, these are subtle but meaningful differences, right? In general, visitor evokes temporary, short-term, passing through, random, unexpected, just stopping by. Guest implies anticipated, warmly welcomed, hospitality at the ready, desired, staying a while. Simple word, visitor, guest. We aren't thinking this through, but they come with frames that activate different pieces of us, not consciously as much as unconsciously. This month we ask, which words set frames of inclusion? And to help us with that question and attention, the converse. Which words unintentionally perhaps set frames of exclusion? In fact, at the end of the month, we'll look at the way one framing of unconscious framing, the term microaggressions, is being reframed again. The term microaggressions, used to describe those unintended slights, especially of people with marginalized identities, it's being reframed as subtle acts of exclusion. I invite you to notice the difference in just how it feels in you. Microaggressions, subtle acts of exclusion, to refer to the same thing, but to set a more helpful and actually accurate frame, one that identifies the effects of such slights, subtle, but not really micro, and exclusionary, though not necessarily aggressive. A framing that provokes less defensiveness, so it turns out to be more useful, more helpful. So even the framing of framing gets reframed. Ongoing, right? There are so many examples of harmful framing being reinforced at a large scale since Inauguration Day. I just want to go through the laundry list of them. But I'm going to back up to make just one more point about framing. It's this, that negating a frame, even to push against it, is to reinforce it. Negating a frame reinforces it. Progressives and intellectuals often have such a hard time accepting this. I've been studying Lakoff's ideas for at least 14 years, and one of my personal pet peeves for the last 5 years has been the use of the term stolen election by the very people who are trying to push back against the idea. How dare they say the election was stolen? The election was not stolen. There's no evidence that the election was stolen. What a human brain hears is stolen, stolen, stolen. It activates that frame. Another framing could be to refer to the attempt to overturn a free and fair election. Set up that frame of a free and fair election, or to deny US citizens their lawful vote. That's a different frame. Or to overturn the will of the people, a different frame. Every time a progressive commentator or elected official or headline repeated the term stolen election, even to say that no, the election wasn't stolen, they reinforced the concept of the election's stolenness, because our brains do not register the negation. If you're not convinced of that, Lakoff gets at it this way, and in fact used it as the title of one of his books. So I would ask you right now, whatever you do, please do not think of an elephant. In your mind, whatever you do, do not picture an elephant the size of a small SUV. Whatever you do, do not, please do not picture in your mind's eye an elephant the size of a small SUV that has bright pink skin and purple polka dots. You do anything else but not that. And above all, and this is the most serious, please do not ever picture an elephant the size of a small SUV that's bright pink with purple polka dots right outside there, ready to come into the building. Do not picture that. Do not picture that. The election was not stolen. As soon as Richard Nixon said, "I'm not a crook," one could not help but picture him as a crook first, even if you supported him, and your second thought was, no, he's not, right? The moment he said, "I'm not a crook," sealed his fate as a crook, of being identified as a crook. The use of the word sets up a frame that overrides logic, rationality, self-interest, conscious thought, command. Don't think of an elephant. In our tradition, the call came up in the 1970s to make the language of our UU principles and other documents less male-centric, to understand that the use of the words brotherhood or man to refer to everyone was not necessarily including everyone, even though you could argue, no, but that's the way the word's used. The frame said otherwise. Similarly, in the wider culture, most people have come to understand that the words policeman and fireman frame who is able or expected or allowed to fill those positions. Thus, police officer or firefighter. Though the word nurse does not claim a gender at the surface, Lindsay pointed this out to me, it's still common to refer to someone as a male nurse, but not to refer to someone as a female nurse. Why? Because the frame nurse already comes with an expectation of femaleness. The frame is in place. You don't create it, it's there, right? And that's, I think, one of those evidences. Opening up with ladies and gentlemen sets up a frame that only allows two very specified genders. The thing is, while we are more and more aware of some framings, there will always be growing edges for every single one of us. More and more subtle awareness of the frames we possess and the frames we use and therefore reinforce in ourselves and others. This month and beyond, I invite you to picture framing in the various arenas of your life. including right here. Notice what's implied by a given choice of words, separate from our intention. Our invitation is to understand that words have deeper, more powerful, and at the same time, more subtle and unconscious effect than it appears at the surface, more consequence than we realize. Ultimately, so many of the frames that matter aren't as visible to us as we think they are. And many frames activate very deep moral values. The most important frames activate deep moral values because they in part help us determine, perceive what is the right or good or natural thing to do, or what is the wrong or unnatural or harmful thing to do. The frames, without any paragraph of explanation, tap right into that. Here's our month. I invite you to notice language, notice the frames. Yes, frames play out at large scales, like at the national level and cultural level, but they also play out much closer in our personal relationships, and the words we use and the effect they have, intended or no, which is a thread we'll pick up in some of the other services this month. And the point is not to, oh, I used a negation. What you're going to remember is, right? The point is to stay open to learning, to awareness. Oh, do we frame something as an obstacle? Do we frame a person as an obstacle or a challenge? A problem or an opportunity? Right? There are options in our language that help us frame where we'll go with it. So at this point, just to point in that general direction of, oh, there's a lot that's close in too. Here's a song by Sister Polly Amrupi of the Shaker community of Pleasant Hill, Kentucky. It's written just after the Civil War and sung by our choir, minus Betsy, who the weather is keeping at home today. Betsy has to travel a ways to get here. What the dew is to the flower, gentle words are to the soul. A blessing to the giver, and so dear to the receiver, we should never withhold. Invite the choir, please, to come sing.
Gentle
last Sunday, thank you. The gentle shaker community, right? Focusing on the common good in their community, but also in the world. Last week I spoke of the origins of the term Unitarian and Universalist, and I focused on where those words came from. The Christian history, the Christian origins are part of our birth story. And so I had two responses this week. One was from someone who said, as an atheist, that felt alienating to them, like they weren't sure there's going to be a home for them here. And exactly in equal measure, someone who said, oh, I've been looking for a connection to the Christianity that matters to me, and this really helped me feel at home. What I want to name is, I think that's such a beautiful example of what we're about as a community. It's a beautiful representation of the blessing and the challenge of being a tradition that does not specify belief, that allows people to have different beliefs. And I would name, in case it's helpful, colleagues for years we've fortified this in each other, that one of the things we can do when we come to an experience and it doesn't meet our needs is to assume that it's really meeting someone else's needs, and to in fact be happy about that. Okay, not working for me today, but I know someone else is really grooving on this, right? It's a way to think beyond ourselves, and to know, ideally, expect that sometimes it'll be exactly what I want and need, and maybe not what someone else needs, right? So the thing is, over time, if you don't get any of your needs met, probably not a helpful fit, right? So it's not exactly either or, but what we try to hold is this openness. And I lift that up not as a blessing, really, that we have this evidence of exactly where we are as an institution and as a community. So I want to thank those people who reached out to me with those messages. It's really important and fitting. So here's to celebrate Unitarian Universalism in action on the field, right? As we prepare to honor our joys and sorrows, those things that we're carrying with us, and goodness knows there's a lot to carry these days. Some of it we know from the wider world, but some very personal, that some of the rest of us may never know that you're holding. But I want to name the joy of celebrating Janet Bullock yesterday and her influence on people's lives and this community. Those are always such a gift for me, the celebrations of life that really lift up the essence of who a person has been. And I also want to celebrate the newly painted surfaces around the building and all the work that's gone in from the people who've been doing that. This gradual transformation, little by little over time. Really, it's fun to watch people come into the building and go, oh, especially if they haven't been here in a while. So thank you. With that, I invite you to maybe unwind your body. You've been sitting for a while. It may help you to stretch an arm. There's something about the physical stretching that aids some of the internal stretching, right? Do what your body needs. And then I invite you just to, once again, just notice that you're breathing. Just notice that you're breathing. And notice what it feels like and where you feel it in your body. Just as it is. Where is your breathing? Where do you sense it most? Your belly and your chest, the edge of your lips or nose, somewhere else. We held a powerful silence yesterday in the service, today too accompanied by rain. I invite you to let the silence and the rain and your own breathing let you settle into this moment and to what's most present in you right now. As you choose, I invite you to enter this ritual. If you're in the room of coming forward, taking a stone, letting it hold what you hold and placing it in the bowl of water, all that holds you. If you're on Zoom, you have a chance to type some of what you hold in the chat, or if you want it to be as simple as the stone, to type a 0 or an O to represent that you're holding something. Invite us to understand that this is time where something important is happening, even if we're quiet in the midst of it. Invite you to lift up your prayers, your hopes, your intentions, your awareness of each other, as well as what's going on inside. We'll gradually sing as we do.
It is such a privilege to look out over this congregation in a moment like that. Many of you with eyes closed, you can see the emotion pass through and around, and there's a sense of spirit. It's beautiful. I just wanted to share that with you.
And Lindsay, there's 41 on Zoom.
41 people on Zoom, staying dry. I love that here at UUCM, we move from belief to action through sharing our Sunday morning plate donations with a local nonprofit that reflects our values. It's an opportunity for us to move from an intellectual to a physical expression of our faith. And it is an actualization of our understanding that the larger community is us, we are them, and that our ability to thrive is inextricably bound to those in a widely inclusive definition of community. That inclusive view this month is focused on the local nonprofit Community Beyond Violence, who will receive 50% of donations. The mission of Community Beyond Violence is to heal the trauma of sexual assault and domestic violence by providing crisis intervention, safety, advocacy, and education to survivors and our community. Will the greeters please come forward to accept this morning's offering? Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate this morning's offering to the ideals and to the power of nonviolence that the prophets Gandhi and King utilized to address multiple forms of interpersonal and systemic racism. May we remember that our words have the power to heal, to include, to connect, as well as to challenge the status quo. May we use them so.
Lindsay, it is always a gift to worship Associate Plan with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn, for reading today the land acknowledgement. I'm really delighted that we had your presence in the service. Choir, thank you very much for singing. We're going to hear them one more time. Eileen, thanks for being our chat host. Linda, for once again, a beautiful setting, a pointer towards springness, right? Robin Hart creates our banners each month for the theme. I like this. I like the way inclusion, you have to work a little bit to read it, right? Just like we have to work a little bit to help. How do we take all this difference, all this separateness, and how do we find cohesiveness? Jim and Gwen and Laura, thanks so much for really thoughtful and heart-centered greeting. Sue for being our lay pastoral care associate today. Michael, Janet, and Elizabeth Rose for refreshment. Just a bunch of steady people there, thank you. And Linda and Cheryl for being with our young ones. Please thank them when you see them. A couple announcements after the service today in the library here at 12 o'clock. We'll have a UU 101, we call it, a brief introduction to Unitarian Universalism and this congregation. If you're new and just want to find out a little bit more, here's a great chance to do it. Humanism Discussion Group meets this week on Wednesday. Our Singing Meditation Circle, Come Feed Your Spirit, on Thursday evening. Come sing together. And the book group next Sunday, talking about the book Such Kindness. In March, we're going to have a pair of deep dialogue workshops with Kat Cox. Some of you participated in her one earlier. So we'll do a little bit deeper version of that first workshop. She'll be online. I'll invite anyone who wants to be here together. You could also do it online. And then what we're going to do is take the ideas and on the second Saturday, actually work with them. Some things that are live with us. And history sessions, I'm going to do some 1 hour sessions just to tap us into a little bit more of some of the people and how what they wrestled with is still part of what we dance with in our lives. And there's a Tuesday evening version and a Thursday afternoon version. You can mix and match those, and they'll be both online and in the room. So please consider signing up for that. As always, check out the website. Even if you're a longtime member, go look in to see what's happening. You can sign up for our weekly e-chalice, weekly newsletter, or our monthly newsletter if you're new. So all possibilities. For our closing words, we called our opening words opening closing words and our closing words closing opening words because they have both capacities, right? But what I have invited you each year for the last number of years to do is name your word for the year, to choose a word for the year to travel with as your travel companion. On your seat, if you're in the room, or in the chat if you're on Zoom, are some information, and here's a slide. If you know your word, and even right now want to send this in, I'll show you in a moment the word cloud and name some of the words. So I'll be inviting you to call out your word for the year too, and I'll echo them back. So let's see, what are some of the words that you are working with this year? What's your word for the year? Presence. Acceptance. Wonder. Recalculate. Relax. Possibilities. Grace. Sorry? Curiosity and enter. Strength. We? Clarity. Online folks, I hope you're typing into the chat. Eileen will read some of those. My word is equanimous. Read my column this week about that one. Quiet. Inner joy. Healing. Peace. Take a breath. I'm going to read appreciation. I'm going to read a few from the word cloud in a moment. Here's some of what's come up so far. Continue, learn, love, reflection, self, resolve, make people laugh, escape, resolute, recentering, curiosity, flamboyant, non-defensive, care, embody, joy, connection, reimagine, resist. So you have a chance now after the service this week to keep sending your word in. I'll show you the word cloud next week that says, here's our collection of words that people are traveling with this year. May they serve us well. May they serve us well throughout the year. And for a benediction, a sung set of good words, I invite the choir up before we do our spoken benediction. I invite you to take these words to heart and mind, words and voices and music. Peace, one of those words, right? Invite us to hold right where we are. And Eileen, would you share a few more of the words for the year and take these as benedictions too, as good words to send us forth. So Paul, if you'd spotlight Eileen.
House cleaning. Resist. Sweetness. Trust. Unburdening. Gratitude, hope, coping, courage, strength, treasure, adjusting, breath, unruffled, trust the garden, autochthonous, that's a tricky one to spell, and happiness.
Frames, all of them, right? Frames. That's why we choose a word for the year. It offers a framing for any number of moments. With that, I invite us to rise in body or in spirit and to share with each other these good words, these words that send us on our way each week, reminding us that we're not alone and that we do not leave empty-hearted. We do not leave empty-handed or hearted. Together, let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. If you're here in the building, please stay for refreshments and conversation and connection. And we'll see everyone next week with our guest speaker, Daryl Grigsby, continuing our exploration of inclusion.